leadership should not be connected to gender. Women who are more rational, it is men who are more emotional. See, Saptanga is a very simple yet profound model.
Welcome to this exclusive special episode for International Women's Day on Chanakya Aanvikshiki with India's #1 best-selling business author, Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai sir. So welcome to this podcast.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much for doing this exclusive podcast only for women leaders on International Women's Day.
It's an honor because I have always believed in my personal and professional lives that women are the greatest assets to a family, an organization, or a country, or a culture also.
Wow. So my first question to you is, what are the triads of great women leaders?
So first things first, Mansi, is that leadership should not be connected to gender. So we have, of course, men leaders, women leaders. Even today we're talking about transgender leaders.
Yes.
So leadership is not a gender-based quality, but anybody who's got those qualities becomes a leader. Now coming back, yes, women have their own strengths. So for example, sensitivity, the ability to look at aesthetics differently. When many people say a woman go to shop and they take a lot of time, it is not just about shopping. It's the ability to look at the colors, the beauty patterns. So I think that's very important. So when a woman comes into the leadership position, she brings in lot of new perspectives and dimensions. This is generally missed by a male leader. So I think that it's a combination of male and female and beyond. So yes, the traits of women leadership are sensitivity, the ability to look at things differently, bring in the beauty aspect of it, and of course, the sensitivity and beyond to take the right decisions.
So in the university you taught us that have emotions but don't be emotional, and women are more emotional when it comes to decision making. So sir, what would you advise them?
I disagree with you. Actually, I found it's women who are more rational. It is men who are more emotional.
Is it?
Yeah, that's been my personal experience. It is not about again men and women.
Yes.
But women look emotional. But in tough situations, they are the one who are more rational. Let me give a small example.
Yes, sir.
If you find in any one of your close family members or even among relatives or friends, let's say there's a death in the family. It's a very emotional thing. Somebody has passed away, it's very close to you. But you'll be surprised the whole situation is handled by a woman. She will take up control and say, okay, the person is gone. And she, typically the mother of the house, would take up charge and say, okay, the relatives are coming, she will inform everyone. And then after all the rituals are over, she will take, okay, or let's sit down rationally, look at the situation. Yes, we have the loss of a person who's gone away. But somebody has to control the situation and take charge. And in such emotional situations, the women were very radical and at the same time very rational. They say, okay, let's accept the reality and now let's face the truth. In fact, I have found, let's say if there is a loss of a member in the family, a very sensitive situation, and let's say there's some financial losses in a company, it's a woman who bring in the sensitivity and the rational part of it together. That's why I always believe that women have what is called EQ, emotional quotient, and it is not just emotion, but it's also we call emotional intelligence. So yes, sorry, but I do disagree that women are only emotional. They are rational and emotional.
Wow, this has actually inspired me. Sir, talking about the startup culture, today we see a lot of women founders and women co-founders. So what advice would you give them?
See, I would limit myself to talking about startups in India because my work has been in India and of course Indians abroad also.
Yes.
But I believe whether in India or outside India. Because I am still learning about the Western culture. I don't think there is much difference because we talk about the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Across the world, people are the same. But still, in my answer, I like to limit myself to an Indian scenario. And in India specifically, when it comes to women entrepreneurship, they go through 3 stages. Okay, the first is before they say the age group of 30. So typically, once you're out of college or in college, you become an entrepreneur. So I would say 20 to 30 is one stage of entrepreneurship, 30 to 50, and then 50 and beyond. And why am I segregating that into 3 stages as far as age is concerned? In our culture, the woman's first commitment is always the family. So, and that's very important to understand. And you must have heard about a lot of women leaders saying that they are successful because of the support of their families.
Yes.
Men always say, there's a woman behind me, but the woman says there's a family behind me.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that the first part of an entrepreneurship, if you're in the age group of let's say 20 to 30, in that kind of a range. When I say 20, it can be 18 also, it can be 17 also. The support of a family is important from one angle. But what happens is that let's say you are married and go to a different family. It's a very turning point for a woman, especially in Indian culture, because she has to shift from a house to a different house. And even though they may look like a similar community or family, there are some nuances they have to adjust to. So I think it takes around a year or two to settle down in the new house, new family. And then if you're going the family way, yes, the husband or the father will be a support, but the first responsibility of bringing the family still lies with the woman. So that's why I think it's more the support of your spouse, your in-laws that matters a lot in the age group of 20 to 50. After 50, it's a different level because the woman are also matured, the children are not so dependent on her. That is the time when she actually flourishes with total commitment. So I would say that yes, women in leadership is something that entrepreneurs or women leaders are blooming in India, but don't neglect the family. The idea being that, even though you say your family is my second priority, by nature, you're always a person nurturing the family. So yes, balance out everything and every stage you can be successful.
Super. So while I was preparing myself to, come for a leadership role in a startup, in the university you advised us that Mansi, please start with Chanakya 7 Secrets of Leadership and understand Saptang. And you said Saptang is for everybody. So why did you say that?
In fact, you've been applying that in your co-student Dr. Karuna Murthy's company also. You are a director over there. See, Saptanga is a very simple yet profound model.
Yes.
It is a time-tested model, and for the viewers who are watching it for the first time, let me tell you, Saptanga has been mentioned even in the Mahabharata, and it is also there in Shiva Puran. And Shiva being my favorite now. So Shiva teaches Saptanga model to Parvati.
Is it?
Of course, many people. So, of course, after that it came in Mahabharata where Bhishma Acharya teaches Saptanga to Yudhishthira how to be a good king.
Wow.
And coming down, it is Chanakya who perfected that model in his generation. And we are trying to apply that in our generation.
And you taught it to us.
Yeah. So I would say that, the Saptanga model is so important, of course, for those people who want to know more. You should read the book Chanakya 7 Secrets of Leadership. But what is Saptanga model? It's a complete picture of how an organization or a country should run. The sutra, as you know, says Swami Amatya Janapada Durga Kosha Danda Mitrani Prakriteyaha. So the Prakriti, the 7 elements of nature are Swami, the leader, Amatya, the ministers, Janapada, the citizens, Durga, which is the infrastructure of the fortified city, Kosha, the finance, Danda, the army, and of course Mitra, your allies.
Yes.
You can apply that in the business also, entrepreneurship also. You can apply that in home also. You can apply that in the education institution. So once you study the Saptanga model, it's very easy to understand. It's not very complicated. I say all beginners should study the Saptanga model. Of course, have an advisor because we need to discuss with somebody. You get more clarity. So yes, my first advice to all entrepreneurs is study Saptanga. Of course, also study Aanvikshiki along with that, and you will become successful.
Super. So after studying Saptang, you told us think like a world conqueror, think like Vijigishu. So how can women leaders become world conquerors or Vijigishu?
But I would put the other way around. Women are world conquerors. But they don't like to project themselves.
Yes.
So if you look at it world over, if you find somebody who is successful, behind that particular person there will be some woman. Okay, so be it business, be it army. It is said, that even if you look at wars, there is a contribution of women in a very subtle way. Even if you are successful as a businessman, there is some woman who brings in her advice and sometimes her fortune. I have studied so many businessmen, they are successful because of the luck of the wife or maybe the daughter. Yeah, so it's a very indirect way. So I would say that, when you look at this word Vijigishu, if you want to be a world conqueror, you should have some woman partner with you. Maybe a daughter, a sister, a mother, a wife, whatever it is. And here is a Chanakya strategy, I would say. Not a strategy, but I would say a principle for leaders. He said, even if you have to go for war, take the advice of the woman in the house.
For what?
Yeah, so many times it is projected when we look at probably some serials or films. So there is a king, a leader, and his Mantri Parishad, again full of men, discussing how should I attack the enemy. But you know what Chanakya says in Arthashastra? Let's say there's an enemy who has attacked you. You decide whether you should fight or no. Like we saw in the last podcast also, that never be impulsive in war.
Yes.
So discuss. So with your Mantri Parishad, with your Senapati, you discuss with your army head generals. And they said, okay, let us go for war. Still you have to go and discuss with your Rajmata and the Rajpatni. So they say, okay, we understand the gravity of the situation. Can we do something about it? So they may say, okay, give us one day, we'll prepare for it and then go and attack. So the support of the woman is very important, because war is not about a country, but it's also about a complete kingdom and citizens. And if you look at 50% of the population is women, so these women leaders, the representatives, also give an input to the strategy. And of course, we've seen so many wars where women came out physically to fight the wars also. But even if they're not fighting physically, they bring in an input which cannot be neglected even in our generation.
Wow. So, any women leaders that inspire you the most?
So many. In fact, I've been fortunate that I come from a community from Kerala called as a Nair community, which is almost like a community led by women. So you meet my family, my own wife Surekha, my mother, with my daughter. So somewhere that I can see the leadership qualities there naturally in them. I see that in a lot of Indian women leaders and many of them across the globe. I'm not only talking about the Fortune 500 companies, women CEOs. So in India, my favorite definitely about women leadership is Ahilyabai Holkar. Now many people may not know this, that she was part of the Maratha Empire, and the place that she operated from was Indore, which is modern day Madhya Pradesh. She built so many Shiva temples. That's one thing I like about her, because she was a Shiva Bhakta and she transformed the whole culture of the Maratha Empire. Many people also don't know that it is Jijabai, or Jija Mata as we call her, the mother of Shivaji, who inspired him to build the Maratha Empire. Then of course we have Rani Lakshmibai again from the Maratha Empire. Why am I talking about this? Because I've studied them, I understood them. And if you go down to the south also, there are so many women leaders. And of course, we have women leaders in North India, not only in India but globally. But the problem is that so much is not spoken about them, so much is not told about them. So my suggestion is that, be it corporate or kingdoms, or even entrepreneurship, or even scientific leadership, or even in the field of arts, education. I know of a study where women in pre-British, I would say pre-independence era in the British Empire used to build hotels, restaurants globally. Yeah. And they were in their own terms Vijikishus. So it is not that, we only looked at from the standpoint of women leaders only in kingdoms or countries, but they were also women leaders in different fields for so many centuries. Study those models and you'll be surprised. You'll discover new women leaders in our own country and culture.
Wow. So there are a lot of first generation women entrepreneurs, first time board of directors, like in terms of women. So what advice would you give them before they take up this challenging role?
Get yourself educated first. It's very important, because Swami Vivekananda, again a role model of mine, he was inspired by a lot of women leaders of his generation. The closest to him was Sharda Mata, the wife of his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, when he left his body, the whole Ramakrishna mission was guided by women. Yes, it was Sharda Mata who actually guided Swami Vivekananda to actually lead and create such a big organization called as Ramakrishna Mission globally. So, the one advice that Sharda Mata gave Swami Vivekananda was to study. And he studied himself and of course went globally teaching Indian philosophy. So, if you are a woman leader, you should study yourself. And fortunately today, we see a lot of women empowerment happening globally. But without study, you will never be empowered. Swami Vivekananda spoke about women education in a big way. He had many sisters and he saw the plight of such women during his generation. So invest in education, get educated. Second, if you want to be an advisor, which you are naturally good at, because women are mothers by nature, and you will be surprised, they are already continuously advising the family members. We tell them they are very talkative. It's not talkative. They bring in the wisdom and also the discipline into a family. So yes, get educated formally in your profession, but since you are also one of the board of directors, there are so many specialized courses on how to give advice also. So in board meetings, you have a structured way of, independent directors now. In India, it's a statutory requirement. It's a policy of the government to get women on board. And in fact, if you look at it, our finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, has set a target to make sure a lot of women come on board. Not only as independent directors, but as advisors to look at the companies forward. And today, if you look at it, there are so many women entrepreneurs, and two women coming together, or men and women coming together, differently think. They think differently, they add new dimensions, and it's important to get qualified and get your experience on the board of so many companies.
Super. So a lot of women directors that we see, sometimes they, tend to step down of their role. So what could be the reasons?
I will not be able to give a personal comment on that. It's always a personal decision, and there could be many reasons. Like I still remember the very famous case of Indira Nooyi. So imagine the person was leading Pepsi globally, one of the Fortune 100 companies, and she stepped down herself, and she said, I want to focus on my family more. Because her mother told her that yes, you may be successful as a corporate tycoon. She was a corporate leader representing one of the biggest companies in the world. But somewhere she felt maybe she had to decide to spend more time with her family. That's also a role of women leadership. Let us remember one thing, those grandmothers and mothers who could not spend their time in building a career doesn't mean they are not building a family. So one of the reasons I find, especially in our country, women leaders step down is to focus on their family. And let me tell you, after that family commitment for a few years is over, they'll bounce back and become better corporate leaders. So I've seen people who go, maybe, take care of the children and all, and once they grow up, they come back. And they come back more mature. So yes, you are absolutely right with the question that women do step down. I remember reading an article, I think it was an Economic Times, or was it Mint? I don't know, one of those financial newspapers, where India is losing talent. And I read, and they are losing on women talent. I said, what is this? Let me read in detail. And they say, let's say, there are 50 MBAs from, let's say, I am. I'll just give an example.
Yes.
They join the corporate world, and then they decide to step down. And they say only 20 people are working, 30 people have decided not to pursue their career. And so it's a loss to those 50 seats of IIM. So out of 50, only 20 are continuing to work, the remaining 30 has discontinued. And I started reading more in detail. What is the reason? That's their individual choice.
Yes.
I think we should respect that. But at the same time, maybe from an economic standpoint, it looks like, we have lost those seats. But the reality is that they went around for different reasons. Maybe they want to build their own company, spend time with their family, maybe study a lot. In Europe, it is quite common. People take a break and go and pursue something called as a sports or a sabbatical. Maybe they go for a spiritual retreat, take a year's break and come back.
Yes.
But the reality is that they'll come back bigger. So how do I measure it? Let's say you're working and maybe you're getting, maybe I'm just putting a number, 1 or 2 lakh rupees salary. But later on when they come back from a break, you'll be surprised they may actually build companies which can give employment to 20 people.
Wow.
So I think it's a woman's decision to decide whether to work or no. That's her choice. But it's never a loss, they'll come back. I'll tell you my own case in my own family. I remember my mother was always a working lady, always. She was always strong, running the economics of the family, taking care of all of us. But my wife, who is an MBA in finance, she took a break and she decided to pursue her family more than her career. But that doesn't mean that she was wasting time. She brought up 2 lovely children, taking care of all of us, and now she's pursuing a PhD. And she will come back, more stronger than what she was before. So maybe that small break is very important for her to do what she's happy doing, and I'm sure she'll come back more stronger and run better business than me.
Wow. So breaks are good, they are positive. The outlook has to be that, something better will come out of the break.
In fact, breaks are required. They are a must. So for example, nature has got a cycle.
Yes.
After day comes night. What is night meant for? Resting, not binge watching. So you require to take breaks and you come back refreshed. And unfortunately, we are running without direction. So breaks give you that opportunity to think and decide what next. So I would say have the habit of taking breaks to come back, not broken, but more refreshed.
Wow. So any book recommendations for aspiring women leaders?
So many. Again, I would go back to that first suggestion that, be it a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. I would just tell books which I have read.
Yes.
And I can see that, these books are useful for women leaders also. So my favorite book, definitely for management or women entrepreneurship, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. by Stephen Covey. It helps you to plan.
Mm.
And Stephen Covey also later wrote a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so many people don't know about it. In fact, that's my favorite book. And this 7 number is something strange, right? So Saptanga, and of
Yes.
course 7 Secrets of Leadership, and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families is very important for women to read.
Mm.
Another book which I will recommend for all of you, please study the lives of saints, women saints. So many. It's called Santa Sahitya.
Mm.
If you are more proficient with regional languages, in the South India we have Tamil literature, Kannada literature, Malayalam literature.
Mm.
In the North also there are so many, like Mirabai's bhajans. It can connect you very emotionally.
Mm.
And let me tell you, women are naturally inclined towards the mark of bhakti. So yes, read some bhakti literature, read some books on women leadership. You decide the numbers. But
Mm.
if you are running a company and entrepreneurship, definitely we need to read more books, get educated. And my favorite book, which looks like a man's book but is more woman related, it's called Inside Chanakya's Mind, Aanvikshiki and the Art of Thinking. Aanvikshiki is a feminine quality, it's a feminine name. Read that and develop the leadership qualities in you.
And Aanvikshiki is your daughter's name as well. So, what do you learn from the women leaders or women teachers? I mean, you've been blessed with so many women teachers, like Dr. Shubhada Joshi. So, what have been your exceptional experiences from learning from them?
So I think, as I always tell, women have a different way of looking at things. It is generally, packaged as they are very emotional. They are not. So I always say the 3S that actually shape my life: Shubhada Joshi, Dr. Ma'am,
Yes.
then Surekha, my wife, and
Yes.
of course Sushila, my mother.
Wow.
So all three had amazing insight. All three of them were fantastic time managers. They were great administrators in their own space. So let me talk about each of them, what I learned from them. So if you look at it, Shubhada Joshi madam, I remember the first time I met her, she was the head of philosophy department at the University of Mumbai. And she was such a great administrator. And I had never faced any problems with her, because typically when you look at any government organization, you've been a student at Mumbai University, when you go to her, you find that government is very easy to deal with. I'm sure as my students you must have seen, you never get caught up in the hierarchy and the bureaucracy of the university. This is one quality I learned from her. My mother's one quality I learned from her was giving. She used to give a lot to everyone till the last moment. In fact, always after she left also she gave to so many people. So giving is one quality that I learned from her. And third is managing your career and your family from my wife. I have done so much in my career, written books, traveled, run businesses, advise businesses. But one thing I learned from is that family should be your first priority. So I always believe that organizations are like families, and people who work with me or work for me for the vision have to be considered as family members. So many things to learn. I think every woman can teach you something special which can become part of you.
Wow. So, talking about organization and families, a lot of family-run businesses have women, and in terms of their leadership roles. So, what advice would you give them when you have your family member working with you in the business as well?
I would say I should give more advice to men than women. Because sometimes men have this tendency in the patriarchal system that women cannot run business. And I have so many case studies where the man suddenly died for whatever reason, and suddenly the woman took charge and they turned around the whole company. So many, I'll give two examples right now over here.
Yes, sir.
One is this particular very famous company in the engineering field called as Thermax.
Mm.
Please Google it. The husband suddenly has to pass away and then the lady takes over and turned around the company. Another company from a hotel industry is Lalit Group of Hotels. So it's a 5-star hotel property, more popular in Delhi. Of course, it's got branches in Mumbai and other places also. Husband had to go away, but she turned around the whole industry. I've seen also that these women actually had the capability, but they were not given the opportunity. I'll tell you a sad story. There was a particular person, he used to be in the real estate industry, he used to be a builder, and his wife was a director in the company. But unfortunately, she was never called for board meetings, for strategic discussions, and on paper, she was a director, she just sign papers. And unfortunately, the whole company collapsed when the husband suddenly died. I met that lady, her wife, because I knew them as a family. And she had only one complaint with her husband, saying that, give us money and everything, but you never gave me the know-how of the business. So it's not involved. And suddenly the husband dies and she doesn't know anything. The whole business shut down. Financially, fortunately, they were doing okay because there was some investments and saving. But see, if my husband had actually involved me more than just signatory, I would have taken the business to the next level. So my advice to men is that involve your wife directly or indirectly. Involve them in board meetings. That's what I keep doing in some way or other. And you'll be surprised that women can contribute much better than what you think they can.
Wow. So talking about leadership, we have a lot of digital leaders coming up in terms of personal branding, in terms of content creators. So what advice would you give women content creators or women digital leaders?
Don't think like a woman. So the thing is that, sometimes you limit yourself by saying woman needs to be empowered. I look at the other way around. Women are already powerful. We call them Shakti, right?
Yes.
So be it whichever space, digital content, I see a lot of digital content creators myself. They're very particular, like you are about, right, how the whole thing is set up, how the thing is done, the aesthetics part of it, and your whole team behind the screen also is full of women. So I would say it doesn't matter which content creation space you are in, please continue believing yourself and don't compare yourself with other women.
Yes.
Because that's one unfortunate part of it. There's so much comparison. So don't compare, collaborate and build your brand.
Wow. So today is International Women's Day. So one advice to all our women viewers.
So again, it's International Women's Day. Women across the globe are the same. Across the world. Because nature has blessed you with something which is unique. And that is called motherhood. Yes, men can support you, but finally, when we say, the child is in so much misery, pains, they always call the mother. So be a mother and bring the qualities of the motherliness and the gentleness in wherever you work. And you will transform the organization.
So this was a very inspiring podcast. I'm sure all the women entrepreneurs or aspiring women leaders have taken a lot of inspiration from today's podcast. And I wish you all the very best and a very happy International Women's Day. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I hope that you all become extraordinary women leaders. Thank you so much.
Happy International Women's Day.